Hi, my name is Martin Perhiniak. Welcome back to the digital art series here on PSD Touch Plus. Today we are going to continue the previous episode and we are going to finish this character design of this medieval robot. In the previous episode, we finished the line drawing. So we are going to start with that line drawing and we are going to make the colored illustration. If you want to follow along, you can download the line drawing version, or if you want to start from scratch, you can also go back to the previous episode and download the rough sketch as a guide, which you can use to trace over. So you can follow me from the previous tutorial or starting from this tutorial if you are only interested in the coloring part. If you find the techniques a bit difficult and the whole tutorial a bit too fast, I highly recommend to watch the previous tutorials, maybe even the basics series, before you start working on this illustration. It's not difficult, I made it simple intentionally, but it might be difficult if you are not really efficient in Photoshop. Even though we only use a couple of tools, it's always good to know your basics. So let's get started. As you can see, the first step that I usually do is to decide on the color swatches that I'm going to use. So I'm selecting colors and I'm painting them here on the left side. I'm going to use these colors, and after I have them, I use the mixer brush tool and I mix them together a bit just to see a bit of variation between the colors, how they work together, how they interact to each other. So I just did this, and I will also need gray color, so I just draw a gray swatch as well, and I use the dodge and the burn tools to make again a bit of variation on top of it. So I have brighter grays and darker grays as well. I turned off the shadow because I had it on a separate layer, so now I have only the line drawing and the colors on a separate layer. And because the line drawing doesn't have white, I can draw underneath it, so it's only the line drawing on a separate layer, and I've started drawing beneath or under that layer on another empty layer, which I use for coloring. I use the brush tools just simply and pick up colors from these swatches. And the main thing I would like to do is to keep contrast between the elements on the robot. So I try to use these colors wisely and try to separate each of the elements from each other. Like using this very bright orange color helps me to separate parts of the armor, these plates. And again, I'm using orange to pick up these parts of the armor. And I want to finish first this upper body part, most of the elements here. So again, I use that teal color just to keep contrast between the elements. And now I moved to the pelvic area. Again, I use the same colors and I work up those details. I decide always on the go where to use which colors. Like now I decided, okay, I will use red for the cape. So I'm just simply selected red from the colors on the left and I started drawing over the cape. I always zoom closer when I do the coloring, and I want to make sure it's a precise drawing. It depends on your style. I like to be precise if I do this illustrative style. I like to stay inside the lines, but if you want to be a bit more rough, you can always make it more dynamic and more interesting by going outside the lines as well. So as you can see, I colored the cape. Now it's the flag is the next part that I'm going to color, and I'm using the same color for that. So I just quickly fill in the color, and then here on these little details I made my brush smaller and then I finish it up. It's good to know the keyboard shortcut for the brush size and all the changes that you need to do with the brush, like changing hardness and softness. These are useful keyboard shortcuts. I mentioned them a lot in previous episodes. So there's the shield as well. I'm drawing now the hands and the arm. I'm using again the same colors. Apart from the red, or actually together with the red, I'm using 5 colors, as you can see. And with those 5 colors, I can easily differentiate everything on the design. I usually call this step in coloring the blocking. So I'm creating big blocks of colors. There's no shading or no smooth rendering on the image at all at this stage. It's just the blocks of colors helping me to visualize and imagine the whole character and setting up the color scheme. So there's the next part, the leg, the right one and then the left one. Again, using the same colors. And as I said, I always decide on the go where to use which colors. I have a rough idea in my head, but I always just improvise where to use these colors and how to use them. So that's the gray is basic color for the armor, and then these are probably the more important parts or more heavily armored parts, the blue ones. The yellow ones are more like decorations. Now I'm doing these cables between the 2 parts of the body, the upper body and the pelvic area. And I'm using a darker color for it, also that darker blue color. So I have the cables. Now I need to do the cables also on the top, on the shoulders, using the same color. And now I'm drawing the flags parts, and I'm going to the sword, and that's the last part. So I finish up with the sword. I'm going to fill in gray color for the sword. Here I use magic wand because it was really easy to select it in the line drawing layer. So don't forget, I'm working on a separate layer. It's not the line drawing layer, it's a separate layer below it. So now I have everything, all the blocks are there. So now it's time to start using the dodge tool, which will create highlights. So I started drawing over it, and at this stage usually I just duplicate the coloring layer, so the layer that I only use for colors below the line drawing layer. I make a duplicate of the coloring layer, and I use the dodge tool and the burn tool on this duplicate. The main reason is to be able to see before and after. So when I'm going to turn it off, you will see without the dodge and highlight or dodge and burn tools, and with if I turn it back. You can see I use the burn and the dodge tool next to each other. I use the burn tool to darken details and the dodge tool to make highlights. And the good thing is, when you have all your colors already, these tools will work on all the colors at the same time. Now I'm working on the cape and the flag. You can see those 2 shadows immediately made the flag look 3-dimensional. And also it's with the cape adding a bit of shadow immediately makes it look 3-dimensional. Now I'm working on the shield with darker details with the dodge tool, with the burn tool, and I'm now using the dodge tool to add more highlights, adding a little bit of details. And I will probably go over some parts again on the whole armor with the dodge tool, just to add these highlights. I will draw over the helmet now, and the cape, and probably the flag as well. And there's the highlights on the flag. Just very quickly added a couple of highlights there. Now again, I'm using the burn tool to darken some parts of the design. And as you can see, I have an imaginary light source somewhere on the top left corner. So the light comes from there, so everything which is on the right bottom side is darker. Everything which is closer to the top left corner is always the brightest parts. I'm working now on the right leg, which is actually the left leg of the robot. You can see I added all those little details. Now I'm working on the other leg, and I'm adding first shadows around the plates, then I'm adding highlights, and shadow and highlight always helps me to describe the form better, even without lots of little details. If you have your highlights and shadows, it always helps to describe the whole form, to make it look like three-dimensional. Okay, I added a bit of light on the edge or on the end of the cape. And now I finished probably with the shadows and the highlights. I add a little bit more on the foot, but basically that's all. I add a little bit on the arm as well, or on the hand part, and it looks much better. You can see this is the coloring layer without the line drawing. I just turned off the line drawing layer, and you will see I turn back on the line drawing. This is without the highlights and with the highlights. So without and with the highlights. You can see how much depth and form it gives if you use highlights and shadows. That's why it was really important to learn this in previous tutorials. Now, there's another layer that I'm going to use, which is clipped onto the coloring layer. I'm using a clipping mask. And as you can see, I start to add orange colors to the image from the left. And I'm going to add dark blues from the right. You will see it on the foot when I start adding it. Basically, I just used two light sources to make the colors a bit more interesting, because usually they are still very neutral when you even after you are using the highlights and the shadows. So that's why I always decide first where's my light source, my main light source, but then I usually use two complementary colors and place two lights in the composition. As you can see now, I'm working on the helmet, and I want to create the reflection on the helmet. For that, again, I use a separate layer just to make it easier to handle that layer. And I'm using 20 or 10% opacity for those skyscrapers in the helmet. And in this case, you don't have to be very precise, just quickly draw some details and something like that. I was trying to follow the shape of the helmet, that little bubble. And now I'm adding highlights using the brush tool, also there on the helmet. I try to make it look interesting. Now I'm adding little highlights on the edges of the armor plates. It's hard to see, but if you concentrate, you might be able to see those little lines that I just add there. Again, it just makes it a bit more interesting and differentiate the elements from each other, make it look even more illustrative. You can see on the hand holding the sword, I added highlights. On the sword, I again add a bit more highlights. And I don't want to end up with a photorealistic illustration, so I will stop because even from this point, if I would continue and working on lots of little details, working on very closely on the colors, I would be able to turn this into more photorealistic illustration. I don't want to do it that in this case. We will have another tutorial for that. So you could see I was turning it on and off just to see before and after. And we have all the details that we need. I will probably turn back the shadow layer as well soon, and I will turn off the other layers. Yeah, here I just turn the background to black just to see how it works on black, but I don't want to change the background color. So there's the shadow below the character. You can draw that on a separate layer using a soft edge brush and set the opacity to something like 10 or 20%. And it doesn't have to be very precise. Again, it just helps you to show the surface, the floor, and it describes a bit more the depth. Here I'm playing around a bit with textures, but I decide not to use any. So I would be able to create a brush and make the whole armor look a bit damaged or dusty, but I didn't want to spend too much time on it. We will learn these techniques in another tutorial. But for now, that's all what we wanted to create today, and I hope you enjoyed it. As I said in the beginning, you can download the sketch or the line art, so you can follow me along and you can draw, and you can use your own colors. You don't have to follow me. You can use a completely different color palette, and you can also work on little details, change the proportions, play with all the little details. You can create an environment for this robot. I really hope that I can inspire you, and you can explore new things and new techniques, and you can come up with your own special techniques. And if you want to share your ideas, you're more than welcome to comment here on PSD Touch Plus, and you can even show your work. Just give us a link, and I think everyone would be interested in each other's work. So let's see what you can achieve with this illustration. And thanks a lot for your attention. In next episode, we will again learn some cool stuff. So thanks a lot, and see you next time.